Hey, today we're talking about one of my favorite topics, sourdough. Hey, my name's Emily Myrick with marriedmyrick.com, and every Wednesday I make videos on attainable homemaking for busy working women. So if you are a busy working woman who wants to become an excellent homemaker, consider hitting that subscribe button and hitting the bell notification. Today we are talking about sourdough. It is one of my latest obsessions. If you know me in person, then you know over the past 4 months I've been a little bit Oprah Winfrey with my sourdough starter, and I'm like, you get a starter, you get a starter, you get a starter. And I have just been trying to get all my friends on it because it's just been so fun, and sourdough I think is delicious, and it's really easy too. So in this video, I'm going to briefly go over what sourdough starter is and how I like to use it, and then also how to take care of it, because it's really simple, but I think sometimes if I can just walk you through it in person, it really just, you can understand how to take care of your sourdough starter more easily, and you'll be able to see just how easy it is so you can get started yourself. So first off, what sourdough starter is. So basically back in the day, before you could just like go to the supermarket and buy your yeast in a can to rise your bread, people would use this sourdough starter to rise their bread. So the starter is just flour, water, and then the natural yeast and lactobacilli. I think I'm saying that right. It's basically a good bacteria. Okay, so if it sounds gross, it's not. It really isn't. Like, the lactobacilli is a non-spore forming bacteria. So if you see spores in your sourdough starter, throw it out. It's not good anymore. It's gonna be bad. But anyway, it's probably not gonna happen unless you don't follow these steps. So that's why you're watching this video. Sourdough bread or whatever you make with your starter has a little bit of like a sour taste, and that comes from the lactic acid that is made by the lactobacillus. I was practicing this word. It's just, scientific. But anyway, so basically that is how you get like that sour taste with the sourdough starter. Now, depending on how long you let the fermentation process go with your starter is how long or how sour the taste is going to be with whatever you're making with your starter. So the fermenting process is what I call feeding your sourdough starter, which I'm going to talk about here in a second. But I do want to go over quickly like why I love sourdough so much, and basically how it has transformed my meal planning. So every single week I make sourdough flatbread pizza, and it sounds like, oh my goodness, Emily, like, why are you eating pizza every single week? But I think it's healthier than like a normal pizza where you're slapping on all of that sauce and all of the cheese. So basically with the flatbread kind of style, we will drizzle it with olive oil, and we'll top it with like tomatoes and mozzarella and chicken and basil, and it's delicious. Or you can do like a barbecue style with chicken and barbecue sauce and red onions and mozzarella. Like, there are a lot of different variations of the flatbread pizza that you can make, but it is a weekly staple in my kitchen because me and my husband love it so much, and it makes it so easy. If you can have like one go-to recipe per week that you just know, okay, we're gonna have flatbread pizza tonight, and when I tell you guys how to make the crust, you're gonna Like, it's awesome. Well, I got this recipe from Lisa from the blog farmhouseonboone.com, and she has some awesome recipe videos too. I will link them in the description below, the playlist with all of her sourdough recipes. I've made so many of them. I have made the cobbler, obviously the pizza, pancakes, English muffins, stuffing for Thanksgiving, which was a huge hit. A lot of other things as well. Like, I've been a little bit obsessive with my sourdough starter, like I said, but this pizza recipe is by far the easiest. So all you do is take your fed sourdough starter. Now remember, I'm gonna go over that here quickly soon. But you just take your fed sourdough starter, and I have a cast iron pizza stone. If you just have a regular pizza stone, that works as well. I've done that. Or if you just have a regular cast iron skillet, that works as well. I love cast iron because it is so non-stick once you have a good season on it. So this is my pizza stone. I just preheat it in the oven at 425. And then once the oven is hot, I'll take it out. I drizzle a little bit of olive oil quickly on it. And then I just pour the sourdough starter on it. Now remember, all the sourdough starter is your flour and water. So like that's it. And then once you pour it on here, I use a silicone spatula and I just spread it out evenly. And then I will top it with salt and some different seasonings from my garden. This is just oregano from my garden that I will like sprinkle on top. You bake it for 10 minutes and then you take it out, put all your toppings on, and then I will broil it for about 3 minutes or so just to melt the cheese and get everything all melty and delicious. And then boom, you've got your pizza. Okay, so there's basically like two principles that you need to think about when you're taking care of your sourdough starter. You need to either have it feeding or resting. Okay, so if it is resting, it is in the fridge with an airtight sealed lid in the fridge. I keep my sourdough starter in a Pyrex glass bowl. And then if you are feeding it, you're also going to have it in a glass or ceramic container. Don't use metal or plastic because the sourdough starter is very acidic, so it can actually it's just not good. So just take my word for it, okay? But anyway, when you're feeding it, you're going to have it on the countertop with a loose tea towel over the top, and so that it can get air, but you're not having bad things go in it. I don't know. So when I talk about feeding your sourdough starter or fed sourdough starter, basically all you need to know is that you need to add flour and water whenever you use it, or at least once a week. Now, if you go longer than once a week without feeding it, it will be fine. Okay, so I have a friend who had her sourdough starter in her fridge for about a month and she did not touch it. And we basically had to feed it 2 to 3 days in a row right after it came out of the fridge to revive it, and then it was fine. And now she's making cinnamon rolls and waffles and all kinds of things. So basically, if you are going to be using your sourdough starter, you're going to have it out on your countertop with a tea towel on top. And then if you are going to go away for a while, or if you're not going to use your sourdough for a while, you're going to put it in the fridge and put a sealed top on it. So it's going to be sealed tight in the fridge. Now, whenever you're going to use it, you're going to take it out the day before and you're going to feed it. So basically, you add flour and water. I heat my water up in a tea kettle or in the microwave. I like to add the flour first and then add the water in and then mix it until it's a consistency like thick pancake batter. So once you have fed your sourdough starter, you need to wait about 12 hours or so before you're going to use it. So, I mean, it kind of depends on the temperature of your house. If you're going, the longer you let it ferment, the more strong the sourdough taste is going to be. So I would say you need to at least have it fermenting for like 8 hours. But the longer is better if your home is colder, like in the winter time. So right now, while it's winter time, I am feeding my sourdough starter once a day, right before bed or right after I use it. And I just let it sit out on my countertop all day, and then I'll use it during the day if I'm going to be making something. If I'm not, I'll discard like maybe half a cup and then I'll feed it again. So I would only leave it on my countertop if I'm not going to use it the next day, if I'm planning to use it soon, you know what I mean? So otherwise, if I know I'm not going to use it until next week, I'll put it in the fridge. But typically when I'm home, I'm using my sourdough starter like every other day or possibly every day. Okay, lastly, if you are brand new to sourdough starter, you might be wondering, where do I get it? So if you're local to me, I would love to give you my sourdough starter, you know. But if you're not, the easiest way to get it is definitely from a friend. My sourdough starter was given to me by one of my friends in small group who got it from one of her neighbors who got it from who knows where. So that is definitely the easiest. The second way is you can always buy a sourdough starter online. The third way is to check out Lisa from the farmhouseonboone.com's video on how to create a sourdough starter from scratch. Now it takes maybe like a week long or something like that to like for the process of creating your own sourdough starter from scratch, but it totally seems doable, and I will totally do that if I ever kill my sourdough starter, which I really hope I don't. It just seems really fun to me that I could like pass on my first sourdough starter to my children or my grandchildren someday. So I don't know, we'll see how long it lasts. For now, I've given it away to a lot of friends and family members like that. And basically how you give your sourdough starter away is the same process as if you're going to use it. So you basically just take a cup out from your stockpile, put it in a glass jar, mason jar, send it to your friend, and feed your sourdough starter right after you use it, and you'll be good. And then, oh, one last thing, right after I use it and I feed it, basically I will let it feed for 4 to 8 hours before I put it back in the fridge. So I don't actually let it feed the full amount of time because I want it to still have a little bit of food when it goes back in the fridge. I don't know if you really need to do that, but I have seen better success and less of like the gray, black kind of stuff when I take it back out a week later. I think it just gives them, I think it just like, it's good to not have like the fermentation process completely over before you put it to rest, because even though it's not as active when it's out on your countertop, it's still not like completely, it's not dead in your fridge, it's just resting. But you know, if you ever like a midnight snack like me, maybe your sourdough does too, I don't know. Now you have all of the basics to take care of a sourdough starter, and hopefully you have a little bit of motivation to try something new in your kitchen this year, and I bet that you will love it just like I do. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. Hit that like button if you like sourdough, or if you think that you might want to try making something with a sourdough starter. And also in the comments below, let me know what I should name my sourdough starter. He doesn't have a name yet, or she, I don't know. But it's kind of like my little pet, so I kind of want to give it a name. But if you leave me up to naming the sourdough starter, it's going to be something like Sally the sourdough starter, which is not that original. So anyway, leave it in the comments below, and yeah, I look forward to seeing you guys next Wednesday.